This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's Check the Report on a great Wednesday. I think the entire city of Detroit, state of Michigan, still buzzing from the news that the Detroit Pistons finally have won the NBA Draft Lottery. First time in 50 years. I can't wait to break it all down with Cameron Clouthier from Detroit Sports Podcast. Great photographer. Love breaking down the Detroit Pistons. And he helped me out as well as I entered the Troy Weaver press conference. Can't wait. But, Cameron, as I entered the Tim Hortons parking lot, I ran into some traffic this morning to delay this recording. So we are doing this via my vehicle. But, hey, it's a great experience. I love the fact of how broadcasting and podcasting can go down from anywhere. And the Detroit Sports Podcast will connect with our contributors from anywhere. I know you were excited. You saw my reaction videos. You liked it right away. Where were you, and how did you take in the NBA Draft Lottery? It was finally something great to cheer about for the Detroit Pistons and their supporters.
Yes, absolutely. So as you said, the Pistons secure the number one pick, first time in franchise history since 1970. So, man, it is a good day to be a Pistons fan. I woke up this morning and I was like, wow, that actually happened. So I was actually at my parents' house yesterday, just hanging out there with the dog when I heard the news, and instantly I got text messages from everybody. Twitter was blowing up. Everything was going crazy. It was like unbelievable. And I won't lie, my expectations were low because in years past, the Pistons did not have the best luck with getting a high draft pick. And so I thought this year was going to be the same. And when I heard the news that they got the number one pick, I was just completely elated, as I know many other Detroit fans are. And, you know, it's just a good time to be a Pistons fan. I feel like now the future is actually bright. You know, we've been hearing that for a while since Troy Weaver took over, since the new regime took over, since the new staff has come into place and new rookie players have come onto the team. But now I feel like the Pistons have a legitimate opportunity to land that superstar player, that franchise icon player. And, man, John, it's just a great time to be a Pistons fan.
Absolutely. I was like everybody else. I got home from work after a busy day. I got my DSP Pimp Cup, and I said, all right, let's drink some beers, let's weigh in on it, and let's be realistic. Now, the fan in me, my heart said, all right, let's go for that number one pick. But as I was drinking, I don't think my brain was going to allow me to utter on camera that the Pistons were going to get the number one pick. So I sat on it. The DSP Pimp Detroit mug was in hand, and I thought about it logically, and I said, okay, if I'm going to do some reverse psychology here, let's go with the lowest spot where I wouldn't be pissed. And I said on camera, I think it would be the number 3 pick.
Okay.
And I was very happy with that prediction. And like everybody else, you sit down for the draft lottery, and you're like, dude, I don't care about any of these players you're interviewing. Just start with the lottery and then have a panel of your best experts break it down. I don't care about all these NBA interviews, and then you do the draft lottery starting at 8:50. You start the program at 8:30, and you start flipping the balls right away at 8:35. You know,
exactly.
That's what everybody wants. Nobody wants to hear about these stupid interviews that you did to drag it all out to get the extra 20 minutes of viewership. But that's here nor there. They started going through, and then right when it got to number 6, everybody in Metro Detroit gathered and took a big sigh of relief after number 6 was flipped. It was not the Pistons. Number 5, not the Pistons. Number 4, not the Pistons. And you make it to the commercial, and you're just like, oh, my God, the Pistons are going to get number 3 pick. And then number three hits, and then number 2 hits, it's the Rockets. And then everybody collectively, whether you were filming yourself or not, whether you were live reacting to it or not, everybody that's a fan of the Pistons that got to see Ben Wallace on that screen was collectively united as a sports community saying, hey, finally something good, because you know the best number 1 player consensus-wise is Cade Cunningham from Oklahoma State. And barring anything crazy going on or a massive trade offer that involves 2, 3 number 1 first-round picks, Cade Cunningham is going to don a Pistons jersey. It was awesome. We all reacted. We all screamed. We all collectively as a basketball community, knowing how bad the Pistons were following a 20-win season, we're excited because the tanking process worked.
Absolutely. Well said, John. Couldn't have said it any better myself. And honestly, we Pistons fans have been going through it for the last years. We really haven't been respectable or especially relevant in the NBA and years, almost a decade. And so it's really, really good to just know that this franchise has finally turned a corner. We finally have something to be excited about, a potential, like I said earlier, a potential star player, future franchise icon, and somebody who's actually going to come onto this team and make a difference, whether it's Cade Cunningham or somebody else. But I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I woke up this morning just on a cloud from how awesome it was to have that happen.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is now, with the status of Detroit Sports Podcast Network, our working relationship with Sports Illustrated covering the Lions, while we're not credentialed yet to cover the Pistons in terms of going to the games, because we're not doing it daily and we're affiliated more with the Lions, but the Pistons were gracious all season in letting me have access to all the Zoom meetings and press conferences that took place, and I'm grateful for that opportunity because you really got a sense to learn the history of what Troy Weaver was trying to do, Dwayne Casey and his philosophies, the players, the rookies, the 4 rookies who came onto the scene and were able to contribute to the Pistons. So I want to backtrack to this. There's this narrative now floating around, and it was perpetrated, of course, by The Athletic, who are just, obviously an entity that's really pro-team and really frame things in a certain way that's fascinating. But the narrative was that, the Pistons really didn't tank in the sense that they just lost every game and didn't try and things like that. That they tanked with a purpose. That they were competitive and they didn't do it the way other teams have done it. And I think that's all bullshit. Look at it like this.
I agree.
There were games when you looked at that lineup and Jeremy Grant was out and top players were out, and you had one game. I think you remember, Cameron. We joked about it. We were like, who's gonna? I think it was against the Spurs. Who's gonna field the worst lineup?
You're right.
you remember it? This wasn't tanking with a purpose. There were games where you put forth a lineup that you knew you were going to get your ass handed to you. And
Absolutely.
that's what you were looking for. That's the definition of a tank. So you can't skirt your argument that tanking doesn't work because you, in the past, have fallen to number 6, 7. It still gives you the best chance to win. The tanking argument is, for those that are against it, is because you don't want to sit through losing and you don't understand the premise behind it. The idea of tanking is give yourself the best opportunity to give yourself the luck that you need, and now the Pistons got it. So
Absolutely. That's right.
Exactly. And you're looking at teams in the playoffs now that suck. When you go, look at these teams now. They didn't tank. Yes, they did. The Hawks. You don't remember the Suns, how bad they were for years?
That's right. Exactly.
You can't conflate tanking with shitty GMs. Okay, if you're a shitty GM and Cade Cunningham is staring you in the face and you decide to pick somebody else like a Franz Wagner, that's on you. That's not the tanking process. That's a shitty GM who doesn't recognize how to take advantage of the pick that you have. Okay, for example now, and maybe one small critique that you could say on Troy Weaver was that maybe with your first selection at number 7, you don't go with a 19-year-old Killian Hayes when you got Obi Toppin or Halliburton or somebody with a little bit more established basketball IQ and knowledge. Maybe that's a mistake, but that doesn't preclude the Pistons. The Pistons did it exactly the manner in which you would go about tanking, and nobody's going to convince me any differently. There was no tanking with a purpose. Stop giving us that bullshit. Yeah, the Pistons competed because they were at least, they had the heart to show up there. They just didn't have enough talent. And that's why you now are excited, because you have the number 1 overall pick. That's a player that should come in and, by and large, help infuse your team with talent. So, guys, remember, this is what you're supposed to do. Have a top 7 pick, have the number 7 pick. Now you have the number 1 pick. This is how you build a franchise. And when you have an aggressive GM, he had 3 first-rounders. Okay, so stop with the narrative that tanking doesn't work. If you're a solid GM, tanking will work because you will be able to select players at the higher end of talent that will get your team above the fray sooner rather than later. It's a fact. I've been right all along when I've been screaming since 2015 into the win for the Tigers. Trade Fulmer, tank, trade everybody, lose to the highest of heavens. And everybody's like, no, we can win 70 games. Oh, no, we don't want to sit through this. You can't get players to.
No.
Yeah, exactly, right? You agree with me that it was not tanking with a purpose. It was flat out tanking.
That's right. So listen to this. That was very well said, John. I've got 3 words for you. Fade for Cade. And we did it, baby. We got it.
Fade for Cade. Exactly, Cameron. And you understood it. You saw the manner in which now the excitement has permeated Metro Detroit and everybody's happy. We're all thrilled. So then in a funny moment, you get to Fox 2 and you realize, they're going to, let Jennifer Hammond ask the final question. But then you get to her and she's just talking to somebody else. She's not engaging in the process just yet. I don't know if she heard because it was real staticky. And she doesn't ask a question. And they're like, we're going to go to somebody else. And then they add, you know what? We do actually have time for a couple more questions. We are going to go to John McEnroe. And I'm like, oh my God. So I asked my 2 questions. And for those that don't know, I always, when there's a big media call, I always put out, hey, what would you ask? Because I feel like I'm a conduit to the fans. And I definitely asked you. I said, hey, what do you want to know? And the questions that you asked were asked in the first 3. So you had great questions. You had great questions, but I wanted to know what his first thought was, and I wanted to know what a player like Cade Cunningham would add to the Detroit Pistons. And you can see the live interaction that we had on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. But how do you think I did? It was really cool to see Detroit Sports Podcast represented in these media calls. And again, that's why we thank the Pistons for letting our entity be part of these media sessions.
Yeah, definitely. So, John McEnroe, you did fantastic. And I'm never going to let that one go, by the way. But no, you did awesome. It was really cool for me to see it. I saw it on Twitter right after you had the opportunity to do it. And I'm just like, wow, that is awesome. That's great for the podcast. Great for you. Good look for us. And how awesome is it to get to talk to the Pistons GM after landing the number 1 pick? And I thought, Troy Weaver was a little stoic, but, praise God. That's what he said to answer your first question. What was the instant reaction to getting the pick? Praise God is what he said. And I'm just like, what an awesome, humble answer. And so all things considered, John, I think you did great. Really cool to see that and to have that monumental moment in the Pistons franchise history be, kind of intertwined with us here at DSP.
Yeah, it was captured, and I think it's great because we've come a long way. And, from the time when you were a youngster, when we were getting started, and now everybody getting into the media game, it's good because, we're a conduit to the fans, and we get to be an active part of the Detroit sports community. So it's an exciting time. And so fill us in a little bit from your experience watching Oklahoma State just a little bit. What do you think about Cade Cunningham and the potential of having him, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes? Oh, my gosh. What a starting lineup that the Pistons could feature.
Yeah, the Pistons, if everything goes well, if everybody stays healthy and everybody performs like they're supposed to, then the Pistons are going to be really scary in a season or a couple seasons. And I'm excited for it. Watching Cade Cunningham play in college, obviously they got bounced out in the March Madness tournament a little earlier than they would have liked, but Cade Cunningham is an exciting player. He's a high energy player, plays the game really well, great basketball IQ, really athletic. He can shoot, he can make plays. He's everything that you would want in a point guard. And I think he's drawn a lot of comparisons to other players like Grant Hill, Chauncey Billups. I saw an article that likened him to Trae Young, and I think if the Pistons, if he's even, half as good as Trae Young, I think the Pistons are going to be in good shape. And it's no disrespect to Killian Hayes because I think that he's going to be a part of the core going forward too. Obviously you take him last year and they were projecting him to be the guy, but I think if you get Cade Cunningham, he's going to be your guy, and then you figure out something else for Killian. But John, I think it's exciting. I think they've got a good young crop of players, like you said. Troy Weaver got those 3 first-round picks last year. Those guys all had really nice seasons, and I think this next year is going to be crucial to their development. So you You develop those guys under Coach Casey, and you bring in a guy like Cade Cunningham. Man, watch out. Pistons are going to be back in 2-3 seasons.
2-3 seasons, I think there's some expectations the Pistons could be a 6 to 8 seed in year one of this. I think that
I could see it.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that a number one pick gives a franchise is the opportunity to believe that maybe you could jumpstart the rebuild a little bit and get you further along. You know?
Well, I just want to say, if the Knicks can make the playoffs, then the Pistons, you know what I mean? I mean, come on, the Pistons got to be better than the Knicks going forward, and if the Knicks can do it, why can't the Pistons?
Absolutely, and you saw the Pistons with 4 of their draft picks in 2020 get on the floor and play.
That's right.
Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes, kudos to them for getting some experience and having the opportunity to be able to get some NBA experience under Coach Casey and to handle business. I was impressed.
That's right. And, getting that first season out of the way is always nice for those younger players because now they can come in with the pressure of being a rookie off their shoulders. They can come in, they can play their game, they can learn more from Coach Casey and the rest of the coaching staff, and they can see how they all continue to mesh going forward if, what works, what doesn't. And obviously there's going to be some growing pains. I'm sure we're going to see some brutal losses along the way, and then maybe we'll see some big wins too on the other hand. But it's going to be all about, number one, how these guys continue to develop going forward, and number two, what is that team chemistry going to be like? How are these guys going to fit together? What pieces are the Pistons going to bring in over the offseason, whether it's a couple veteran guys or another scoring option off the bench or maybe another big man? The Pistons can go in so many different directions as they continue to craft this roster. And I think it's going to be all come down to, the mindset of GM Troy Weaver. And then number two, like I said, how are these guys all going to fit together?
Yeah, like you said, Troy Weaver is stoic. He's thinks before he speaks, takes his time, really slow cadence. And it was tough at times because you're wondering, does he like these questions? Does he not like these questions? Does he think this is a complete waste of time? There was a little bit of an echo with the Zoom, so it was a little bit funny. And I do want to bring it back, too, because when you're a media member, I think one of the basics you would like is for people to at least know your name. And most people do include the N because it is there in the spelling. My Zoom name is not crackhead podcaster or stupid idiot troll. It's not that. My name shows up on the Zoom as JOHN space MAAKARON. And now I've let you do it now. You can correct it in our future SI videos. Most people say it the way you did in the videos, which is John Macaron or John McCarron. That's not correct. It is as if there's 2 O's. It's John Macaroon.
That's right. Vito gets it right.
John Macaroon is how you say it, and it's real simple, like the cookie. And there's been so many ways in which these media members have said it. I've done it actually in chats on these meetings where I phonetically spell it. I put John MA-KA-ROON question because people don't understand how to say my name. And I'm humble. I don't really want to put myself out there too much. But after 7 years, getting near a decade of doing this, I think it's fair to say that my name is John Macaroon of Detroit Sports Podcast. I founded this thing, and I want to have my name said correctly because then when it gets rebroadcast on a great entity like Woodward Sports, when they replay it, then my name gets spelled wrong, and it's it's hilarious on every level. And I said now you joked. It's John Macaroon with the N silent, which is unique because that's not. I think the way in which most people would get it wrong, in a professional way, to say John McCarron, and that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. But how do you skip out the N?
They really butchered it.
They did, in a big way too. I'm like, but I think it's funny too because on one side of it, I'm like, well, it kind of goes with the brand. I'm the outsider. I don't really care too much about putting myself out there on video and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's funny that my name gets butchered at the easiest level when my name is spelled for everybody to see.
Give John the respect he deserves. Come on, this is DSP, baby.
Exactly. And so I find it funny because it's that dual role of okay, do I just have to keep spelling my name, telling people my name, get myself out there so people do it? Or the funnier thing is we can have these bits where it's like, this is some guy that just shows up to all these pressers, but we don't know his name and we don't know what he's about. But he only works for Sports Illustrated, and he's only been doing it now for Sports Illustrated for 3 years and the podcast for 7. It's like, it's funny at the highest level, and I think that's where I'm going to keep it. But eventually speaking, maybe when I hit 45 or 50 years old, I'm going to want a little bit of respect to have people say my name correctly. Or
you'll have to take a magic marker and write the phonetic spelling on your forehead or something.
So now we're looking forward. Now, I want to get your sense because, obviously Troy Weaver has appeared in some media interviews already after the draft lottery win, and he's asked, would you consider a trade? Would you consider a nice offer? And, of course, he said, we're going to consider everything. We're going to consider about 5 players, and we're going to do our due diligence, but we're locked in. And, of course, Cade Cunningham is at the top of our list. So what do you think in regards to the potential? What do you think it would take? Would it take 2 first-rounders, 3? Would you take a player like Luka Doncic and a couple first-rounders for it? I think the one that everyone omits is you're not going to take the call from Philly for Ben Simmons. You're just going to bypass that and hang up the phone. But would you take an established player that maybe wants out of his situation, maybe like a Zion and a couple firsts? Or do you say, you know what, roll this dice, give us Cade, and let's roll forward with this potential team that we got going forward?
You know what? Give me the pick. Give me Cade Cunningham or whoever it ends up being. I think the Pistons and Troy Weaver are really locked on developing this team and building this team from the ground up. So I don't think that they'll entertain any trades. I agree with you. I think if Philly calls and offers Ben Simmons, you say no. I think there's some rumblings that Luka's a little bit unhappy in Dallas, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Same thing with Zion. Same thing with maybe Russell Westbrook as they got a coaching change in Washington. But I think you keep the pick, you draft your player, you build your team, you keep your guy. I don't know what it would take. I'm not Troy Weaver, so I don't really have an educated answer for that question. But I think you got to roll the dice. You got to take your pick, and you got to see what you can get. I mean, worst case scenario, Cade Cunningham doesn't develop and the pick's a flop, but we've seen that before. Dare I say, we've seen it before with Darko. We all know how that works, and it's disappointing and it sucks. But I think they're really, like I said, they're really locked on to building this team with that young core and those young guys. So I think that's what they're going to do. I think that's the answer, plain and simple.
Yeah, the flop meter is low for Cade Cunningham because the Pistons will build around him and support him. You got a cast of young players that are all going to be together. Continuity. Troy Weaver has come out and said that they're not going to overhaul the roster to the degree in which they did last offseason, so you're going to have that continuity. So I'm very impressed with what they're trying to do. At least this is the formula. Nobody in the basketball world is going to critique Cade Cunningham. Now, the poor luck factor would be if a player like Mobley or one of the other 4 players takes the offense and shines, and then Cade Cunningham becomes, like a player that does not perform well, and then you're like, oh man, this is a situation in which you second guess it. But at the time, we all in a consensus agree that if the name Cade Cunningham is presented on that card, we're all going to be happy, and then we have to just wait and see what the player. That's the luck factor. But you never know. Troy Weaver could shock the basketball world and pick somebody else, but I don't think it's going to happen because Cade Cunningham's film speaks for itself. He's impressive. He doesn't need to be a high-volume shooter. He can fit right into this offense, and you can let Killian Hayes develop Sekou, and you have Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, and then Jeremy Grant with what you can do there. And you got to remember, the Pistons have the opportunity to package a couple second-round picks to move back into the first round if there's a player that you like. So this is looking really good for a rebuild, and I think the Pistons have jumped the Lions and the Red Wings and Tigers to be the team that probably will get back to the postseason first. I don't know if you heard this, but I listened to an interview that Vince Ellis did on Woodward Sports, and he said, I covered the Pistons for 12 years for the Detroit Free Press. And do you know how many playoff wins he saw and covered, playoff wins that he covered in his 12 years. Guess how many?
Oh, boy, not a lot.
0, bro. 0. 0 playoff wins in your time as a beat writer. That would be 9 more years of me covering the Lions without seeing a playoff win. I give the man props from us here at DSP to write about the Pistons for 12 full seasons where you don't get to write about one playoff victory. You get to the postseason, but get swept each and every time is an amazing, amazing situation to try and cover. So that's why, hence, he bounced out and took a job with the company that owns the Pistons, because he was like, I need to do a little bit more than covering Rodney Stuckey and all the
Kyle Singler and all the bums that we had back in the day.
Henry Allenson. Oh, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So thankfully, the Pistons have Troy Weaver and an eye for talent, Beef Stew, Sadiq Bey. You have players on this roster that are young and hungry and want to grow together, and they want to be part of the Detroit community. I mean, you saw it. Now, the one player that everybody's kind of looking crooked at is the player that DSP actually met face to face. And so I'm encouraging you, Cameron, not to stalk. Do not go anywhere near 500,000 feet of Cade Cunningham. Okay? Because
what are you saying on bad luck?
Bro, you're not following along. There's something called the DSP curse, where whatever we touch, whatever DSP gets involved in turns sour, turns rotten, ends up being cockeyed, or the player goes down with injury the second we say hi. And so, for those that don't know, Killian Hayes steps off the plane after he gets drafted by Detroit, and who's there to greet him? Cameron. And I'm like, no. And then what happens? Killian goes down for a big portion of his rookie year, and then everybody's looking at his shot, and their critique is, this dude's shot technique is cockeyed, and he better fix that shit right away. And I'm like, this is our fault. DSP curse lives again. So Cameron, just stay away from Cade. And the funny part is, I'm like, bro, you met Killian Hayes. Let's get him on the podcast. And you're like, well, it wasn't like a real meeting. He just kind of looked at me and took a picture. But it's kind of like, it was like charity. He's like, who's this troll? What's this 10-year-old trying to do? Get a picture?
Literally.
Exactly. So we won't do that. We'll let Cade have success, and you'll stay away from the Pistons' #1 overall pick, so that the DSP curse does not impact anybody seriously. So it's going to be a good time. I think we're all riding high, and you can hear it in our voices. The Pistons now are going to be more relevant, and now you are aware I got myself partially vaccinated. I'm 3 weeks away from getting the full vaccine, so I'll be able to go to LCA. I'll get the crew together, and we'll see what kind of fan you are. Maybe we'll have some signs, and I'll take you to a Pistons game and let you get let you get yourself over, scream your head off, and put the signs out there. Because nowadays
that's what it's all about.
The thing to be is the crazy fan. I think you're our crazy fan here at the network, and I think it's time you get a chance to enjoy opportunities and things like that. You've done good work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, and it's been a while since I've been to a Pistons game because of the pandemic and partially because they weren't really that good. But hey, you tell me when and I'm there, John. Let me know.
Okay, exactly. Because right when the pick happened, I'm proud of you. You're like, hey, I want to talk about it. I want to get my voice heard. I want to do this more often. And, with the Pistons and Wings being in their off season now, we take a break a little bit from Check the Report, but we'll do it more regularly as we progress, as more news breaks and things that we want to weigh in on. Cameron has a good, strong voice, and he has opinions on things going on in the world of Detroit sports, and he's active. He likes covering the Pistons. He likes covering the Lions. He definitely is a fan of Detroit sports, and he deserves to have his voice heard. And Check the Report can give you that opportunity, so make sure you follow Cameron. Make sure you check out his great work. Plug your media company. Where do people see your amazing photography?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm at C2 Visual Media on Instagram. That's where you can see most of my photography and videography work. And if you want to shoot me a follow on Twitter, it's at Cameron Clothier. It's at CAMREN, last name CLOUTHIER. So give me a follow. Look forward to connecting with the community, talking some Detroit sports, and giving John a hard time on Twitter like I always do.
Now, to be clear, you're not shooting photographs of women scantily clad.
No, John.
Not yet.
No,
not
John.
yet. Not yet. But when you get the call from one of the classy Instagram models that want to put their content that want to put their content on Instagram or OnlyFans or whatever whatever the new spot is for the classy ladies to put their photos up, please invite me. The rest of the sports stuff, you can continue to ignore me. But when you have that photo shoot with the influencers that are like, we want to go to the beach and it's going to be classy. There's going to be some flowers and she's going to be in a one-piece thong and you got to kind of, be our guy. Shoot me a message because I'm a good consultant. I'm a good mood setter.
You can be my water boy. You can be my extra set of hands.
Exactly. And from my knowledge of the background of these amazing shoots, you got to spray to make everything look good.
You got the fans to get their hair blowing in the wind.
Yeah. And too, I'm humble, Cameron. I'm a renowned, world-class body painter. So once they disrobe classily, I can, paint with red, yellow, green. I can enhance the natural beauty of all the women with my artistic vision. So make sure I want to let everybody know I am a world-class female body painter. And I want to let everybody know that Cameron, if he gets into that kind of business, he will include me and I will then enhance my craft. Like I let you enhance your craft via photography, you need to let me reveal my truth and let my creative juices flow. You know, with the canvas. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Let's talk again soon. Detroit Sports Podcast. Check the report. Thank you guys for subscribing. Let's talk soon.
Sounds great, John. Thanks for all the time.